What you're about to witness will leave you stunned and speechless. Or what do we say when kids cross the line from innocence to insanity and turn playgrounds into crime scenes in minutes? What drives seemingly innocent children to commit unspeakable acts of violence? Join us on this special episode as we reveal the most extreme cases where kids go totally crazy.
Eric Smith was just a quiet 13-year-old boy living in New York at that time, or so we thought he was. He was red-headed and always wore glasses. This made him different from his classmates. It didn't help that he was constantly bullied. He would be seen just riding his bike alone around Savona all the time by himself. He was bullied in school, so he started spending time alone. Behind his beautiful and innocent smile was a growing anger that no one saw or understood. He felt alone, helpless, and sad most of the time. One day, during the summer, Eric met Derek, a 4-year-old heading toward the same camp as him. Smith saw young Robbie and lured him into a quiet, shadowed area in the woods nearby. There, he attacked, strangling Robbie until he went limp, unconscious. But Smith didn't stop. He found a heavy rock and let it drop onto Robbie's head. Derek Robbie was beaten to death. Autopsy reports show he died from blows to the head. In a cruel act, he took a small stick and hurt him further, even pouring Kool-Aid from Robbie's own lunchbox into his wounds. The cause of death was blunt trauma to the head and asphyxiation. The following morning, Robbie's mother arrived at the park to pick up her son, but she found out he hadn't made it there. Hours passed in a frantic search, and then, after 4 agonizing hours, police finally found Robbie's body. Eric Smith saw Derek Robbie and recognized immediately that he was going to kill him. A few days after the incident, Smith broke down and confessed to his mother, admitting he was the one who hurt Robbie that night. The Smith family made the difficult decision to report the crime to the police. The murder case shocked the entire country, grabbing national headlines, not just because of the crime, but because of the ages involved. What could have triggered this young boy to do so? Smith was led into the courthouse, handcuffed and surrounded to understand his violent behavior. Doctors ran numerous tests, checking everything from brain function to hormone levels, hoping to find answers. But nothing in his biology or health could explain what he had done. Court records painted a lonely picture of Smith's life. He was often bullied and teased for his appearance, shows to them that the issues that they have to determine in this case. His large, low-set ears, thick glasses, red hair, and freckles. This isolation might have fueled his actions, but the exact reason remained unclear. A psychiatrist for the defense suggested Smith suffered from intermittent explosive disorder, a rare condition causing sudden violent outbursts. Yet the prosecution's expert disagreed, saying that this disorder was almost never seen in someone Smith's age. Instead, they diagnosed him with ATTENTION hyperactivity disorder.
But this too failed to fully explain the rage that had surfaced in him. On August 16, 1999, Eric Smith was found guilty of second-degree murder. So you find the defendant guilty of murder in the second degree? Yes. Months later, on November 7th, he was sentenced to the harshest punishment possible for a juvenile at the time, 9 years to life in prison. Smith spent 27 long years behind bars, and during those years, he grew from a boy into an adult. I became the individual who dished out pain to someone who didn't deserve it. Finally, in October 2021, after countless parole hearings, Smith was granted his release. Initially set for November 17, 2021, his release was delayed as authorities searched for an approved residence for him. Eventually, on February 1, 2022, Smith was released, stepping into a world much different from the one he left behind as a teenager. Eric Smith was released from prison after being locked up for 28 years. Moving on, Eric's case is just the beginning. Next, we'll dive into the story of a troubled American teenager whose unexpected violent spree shocked everyone.
Kip Kinkle, the Thurston School shooting on May 21, 1998, is arguably the worst crime our community ever suffered through. Kip was just 15 years old when he committed this crime. At the first instance, he looked like an average student who enjoyed doing what most people his age did. But he was struggling academically and socially, and he was drawn to firearms. This fascination had extended to explosives. Kip started creating homemade bombs, mainly using gasoline, and would detonate them at a nearby quarry to release his growing anger. Book about building bombs, and in fact, I think he even did a report using that book. Kip's father, William, wanted to steer his son away from violence, but eventually enrolled Kip in gun safety courses. Still just 15, Kip was gifted a 9mm Glock handgun and a .22 caliber rifle, which he would use for target shooting with his dad. William even passed down his own childhood .22 rifle with Kip's mother Faith reluctantly approving after his psychologist gave her emotional permission to allow it. In high school, Kip was often labeled as strange or morbid by his classmates, some even calling him psychotic. He frequently talked about wanting to experience violence firsthand and dreamed of joining the U.S. Army after graduation. Once, he shared a how-to speech about bomb making in his speech class and set off stink bombs in classmates' lockers. Concerned, Kip's parents enrolled him in anger management. They had him evaluated by a psychologist, Dr. Jeffrey Hicks, who diagnosed Kip with depression and started him on Prozac. The sessions lasted 6 months, and Kip appeared to improve. He and his parents decided to end the therapy, but when Kip ran out of his Prozac prescription, he didn't renew it. Soon after, Kip began experiencing paranoid delusions. He believed the government had implanted a computer chip in his brain, and he became convinced that a foreign invasion was imminent. He described hearing 3 distinct voices. Voice A pushed him toward violent actions, Voice B bombarded him with insults, and Voice C echoed what the other voices said. Kip believed he was being punished by a higher power and felt tormented by these voices. Eventually, Voice A would lead him down a dark path, urging him to take his parents' lives and later carry out a horrific attack at his school. On May 20th, 1998, Kip Kinkle's day took a dark turn. That morning, he was found with a loaded stolen gun on school grounds. The weapon, a .32 caliber Beretta, had been swiped by one of Kip's friends who sold it to him the night before for $110. Kip brought the loaded pistol in a paper bag and hid it in his locker. But when the original gun owner noticed it missing, he reported the theft to the police and gave them a list of students who might have taken it. Though Kip wasn't on the list, the school quickly became suspicious and decided to question him. When asked about the weapon, Kip surprised everyone by admitting outright, "Look, I'm gonna be square with you guys. The gun's in my locker." He was immediately suspended and arrested along with his friend who helped him get the gun. Later that day, Kip was released from custody and picked up by his father, who was furious and disappointed. On the drive home, his father warned him that if he didn't turn his life around, he'd be sent to military school. But as his father spoke, Kip barely understood the words. The voices in his head had grown louder, drowning everything else out. Later in the afternoon, he took his Ruger rifle from his room and loaded it with ammunition stored in his parents' bedroom. Kip went to the kitchen, and with a single shot to the back of the head, he killed his father.